Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is ExO Economy Town Hall number 14. We've got an excellent panel today, and we're going to be talking about cybersecurity and all of the hacks and things that are going on in the environment. So put your questions in chat. We're all up and ready to go. Let me introduce you to our host, Kent Langley, who's a serial entrepreneur, co-founder of OpenExO with Salim Ismail. He's also founder of Nscaled, the pioneer in disaster recovery as a service, which was acquired by Acronis. And he's currently the Chief Operating and Technology Officer of OpenExO and today's host of the show. Take it away, Kent.
Is this the 14th time we've done this?
It is.
That's insane. I saw that this morning and I was like, that's a typo. We didn't do this 14 times, did we?
Oh, we have.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, Nikki, thanks again. I think you've put together an awesome show for us today. We've got Jill on the backstage helping us make it all work right. Thank you, Jill. And a whole team of people that have come in. We've got a really cool show for you today. I want to show, look, check this out. All right, Nikki. So look at this. Meet the vigilantes who hack millions in crypto and save it from thieves. Why would we need vigilantes to do that? Because people are stealing millions, hundreds of millions in crypto. Look at this, the Business Week, the math prodigy who's hack up into DeFi and won't give back his millions. So you've got some people who are being a little greedy out there. There are flaws that let hackers attack blockchain and DeFi projects. How are you going to keep yourself safe? If you do DeFi, if you trade crypto, if you use an exchange, if you have a wallet, oh gosh, I mean, there are people out there that want to steal from you. IRA Financial Trust files a lawsuit against Gemini for a $36 million crypto hack. Whose fault is it when your stuff gets stolen in crypto? Your keys, your crypto, that's what they say. So, you know, and then a really popular one everybody's heard about is Bored Ape Yacht Club. The community suffers third major hack of 2022. It's only June. So, you know, that's, you know, your Bored Ape Yacht Club is kind of your membership card. Can you imagine someone just steals your membership card at the gym and goes in and works out as you? I don't know how that would work, but, you know, it's kind of an interesting thing. And then the company, Yuga Labs, confirming a Discord server hack, 200 ETH stolen. I mean, this is crazy, and it's happening and happening and happening. So what you've done for us today, Nikki, is you brought together a great panel. We've got two folks who I want to introduce quickly, and then we're just going to get right into it. We've got Dr. Ryan Wegner. Ryan is a veteran cybersecurity professional working in cryptocurrency and decentralized finance. He is a senior leader and responsible for identifying and mitigating cyber risk and reporting to executives on a routine basis. Ryan's passionate about technology and security. He's got a strong academic background in AI and artificial intelligence and a personal interest in virtual reality and the metaverse. Currently, though, Ryan is a senior security engineer with Polygon Technology and was just previously VP of security at CoinSquare. So he is right in the thick of it. All these things that I was talking about, he's seeing it in his day-to-day job. We also have with us today Joshua Gotley. Since 2017, Josh has been using client-side encryption to secure millions of dollars worth of cryptocurrency for dozens of clients who've never lost money from a hack, according to Joshua. He was hired recently by a blockchain and ICO specialist to design a $100 million private offering protected by client-side encryption. So he knows what to do to protect some of these assets. And this project was also covered by MIT Technology Review in 2019. He worked at State Street Bank in the State Street Digital Department to create cybersecurity procedures to securely hold billions worth of cryptocurrency, again, using client-side encryption. So Josh, a client-side encryption guru, and we have him here today. And an interesting quick story about Josh is recently a business approached him to pay a ransom. They were being asked to pay a ransom using cryptocurrency. And so the business approaches him to help. They did pay the ransom to unlock the business files. Now that, you know, he helped them do that. So this is good. They got their files back. But in a way, right, the bad guy won to a degree. So Josh decided to create a consultancy to implement best practices learned from these types of experience in his background. So let's get Josh and Dr. Ryan Wegner on stage. Gentlemen, so good to have you here today.
It's great to be here.
Thanks for having me.
Did I miss anything, Josh or Ryan, in your intro that you wish I had shared?
You got it, Ken. I
Okay.
also implement client-side encryption into the back end of applications also. So a little bit of application development.
Got it. And are you hands-on, working hands-on in programming?
Yes.
Great. So this is awesome. So, and Ryan, we had a great chat a little bit backstage earlier. So we were talking a little bit about some of the things that happen to people and some of the things that you see. We've got a number of questions that have come in from the audience today. And I'll just remind everybody out there that today is a conversation. We're here to inform you and to help you understand what might be going on in crypto. I showed that big smattering of headlines before we started because you know what? This is happening every day. There's something, it seems like, every single day. So let's start out with kind of a broad question around that. Cybersecurity, NFTs, blockchains, cryptocurrency. We'll keep those four things in mind. What's going on? I mean, why are there hacks every single day or week? Each of you, give me your ideas. So what you think is going on here?
So if you drill down a little bit deeper, and Ryan could comment on this too, feel free to jump in. Most of the hacks are due to this multi-signature wallet design. Now, different DAOs will have multi-signature to be more decentralized, but if one configuration or one line of code alters the rules of governing that multi-signature wallet, then that could be exploited and become a vulnerability to that pool of funds.
Okay, let's take a quick step back before you jump in, Ryan. Multi-signature wallet design, DAOs. You've threw a few things out there. We want to make sure that we keep our audience informed. So DAO, distributed autonomous organization. I have my definitions of DAO. What do you think of DAO is, Josh?
So I think that's right, but to drill down on that a little bit more, is that a DAO is a collective of people that may not know each other or trust each other, but will submit their money to a smart contract, which is essentially a wallet with preset rules to govern the funds.
And why might I need a multi-signature contract?
Multi-signature contract enables a fund or this governing body to not be susceptible to one bad actor, and that a group of people can sign off on making decisions before moving funds.
Right, like say we want to move some money from the treasury into an operations wallet, it might require 3 signatures out of 5. So a lot like multi-signers on a checking account or something like that to type something back to something. So Ryan, what do you think? What's going on out there? Why are there so many hacks every day?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of adversaries who see opportunity to move money quickly and anonymously. And there's also kind of a knowledge gap between the users of the system and the adversaries. So you have a lot of users come to this space who don't necessarily have a good grasp of how cryptocurrencies work, but they really want to get involved because there's a lot of opportunities that cryptocurrencies provide. So what I see is a lot of actors are very brazen in stealing funds because they feel like if they can get a hold of cryptocurrency, they can move it quite easily across a blockchain. And if they can get it to an exit point where they can off-ramp it into fiat, they feel like they've gotten away with the crime. It's a wonderful platform for money laundering in that respect. So, I mean, I do see from your perspective, Josh, with the multi-sigs, I'm also seeing a lot of social engineering and a lot of smart contract bugs that are causing a lot of funds to be stolen. So some of the big ones where you're losing hundreds of millions of dollars, often that has to do with a bug in a smart contract, like reentry or something, where someone can exploit that contract to steal money. And I'm seeing a lot of the smaller hacks that are in the, $10,000 and less, and even in the $100,000 less are people being exploited and giving up their seed phrases, for example. Then adversaries, once they have their seed phrase, can go in and basically drain their wallet of cryptocurrencies or investment scams. We see a lot of those where people are promised extremely high returns, like in 30, 40% returns. So they hand over their money and they hand over their crypto, and then it's effectively a Ponzi scheme. So we're seeing a lot of the same schemes we used to see in traditional finance are making a massive resurgent because of, I mean, to some degree, I'm going to say the taboo, lack of regulation in the cryptocurrency space. People it's easier to get away with these things because of the uncertainty in regulation. So that's what I'm seeing. It's just a space where adversaries have a massive advantage over some traditional spaces.
And Ryan, just to comment on the Ponzi scheme piece of it, is that it's not always a cybersecurity flaw that causes rapid loss of funds. It may be an economic flaw, like with Terra recently. Many have heard that $40 billion were lost in 2 days. And I had actually worked with the Terra team previously on the basis.cash protocol. And I publicly explained that this economic flaw, and was working with the team on a different protocol to fix it. But that protocol quickly went to zero also, and I was warning other funds about the risks of that also. So when dealing with cybersecurity, you also take into consideration the economic model and its security.
I love that point, Josh. Really quickly, I want to just do a quick shout out. I see some folks have said hi. So Luca, Stefano, it's great to see you. You guys are regular attendees of our show, so it's so nice to see you out there in Italy and wherever you are out there in the world. So thanks for joining us today. What is it they always say on the YouTube? Give us a like and a subscribe. No, it's like, yeah. I always get a kick out of that. It never makes me click the button, but yeah, it's kind of funny to say now. I think that a couple of quick things I want to make sure I pluck out there. You said seed phrases. What's seed phrase? We do have to define these kind of terms as we go through. So I'll be plucking a little bit of these out. Then we'll circle back around to the cybersecurity things. So who wants to take that one?
I can start with that one, and Josh, feel free to jump in and clarify. But so when you want to set up a wallet to hold your cryptocurrencies, it has to have a private and public key, and you can derive the private keys to your wallets using a seed phrase, which is easier to remember and can be used to recover. So instead of having to remember your private key, you're given in MetaMask, it's typically a 12-word seed phrase. There's also 24-word seed phrases in Ledger, which is a hardware wallet. Now that seed phrase, anybody who has that can recover your wallet. So that you might be used to kind of in traditional, logging into sites, you'll have like multi-factor authentication, that sort of thing. With the seed phrase, there is no multi-factor authentication. If someone has those 12 words, they can recover your wallet. Which also means if you ever come across a piece of paper that has 12 random words on it, you may have just cashed in on somebody. Josh, is there anything you want to add to that?
Oh man, yeah, no, yeah. So it's like the ingredients that when you mix them all together, bam, you get somebody's wallet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll add a little bit something to that. It's like, why are there so many codes or that we have here? We have a private key, we have a public key, and we have a seed phrase. Why do we have those three? So the public key is like an email, so people can send money to your wallet. Of course, everyone would like their public key to be very public. And then if you reuse that public key attached to this private key enough times, you're increasing the probability of someone detecting or figuring out what that private key is, which could increase the risk of your funds being stolen. Now, this rarely happens, but best practices would be to generate more private keys associated with the same seed phrase and rotating those the private keys you use for your funds.
I just made up my mind to do something on this show. I'm going to sort of think of that as a tip moment, right? You've just given a couple of really good tips, and I'll reiterate them and feel free to add. Protect your seed words. Again, if someone has all of them, 12 or 24 or 4,000, it doesn't matter. If they have them all, they can reconstitute your wallet and they are you effectively. That's what people sometimes don't connect. And then the second thing was don't reuse. So this don't reuse concept. When you're using any crypto wallet, you will generate things like receive addresses. This is where people send you tokens. you should not reuse those over and over and over and over. It allows people to triangulate you and understand that that address is you. So you should, as Josh has just told us, you should periodically, or in an extreme case, never use the same one twice. Some people do that. All right. So don't reuse receive addresses indefinitely is a good tip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fair. So, and to touch on the seed phrase, since we're talking about tips, we've sort of gotten into the habit with passwords to store your passwords in a password manager. You should never store your seed phrase in electronic form anywhere. I highly discourage it. So don't put it on your Google Drive. Don't put it in your 1Password account. One of the best places for a seed phrase is written down on a piece of paper, and that piece of paper held in a bank vault somewhere. That's kind of extreme. But if I talk to kind of institutional clients, that's why I would recommend. I had to depend to the point where you could split up your seed phrase into 5 or 6 chunks and put them at 5 or 6 different banks. This depends on how paranoid you are. But even just in a safe in your office or something, if you're not expecting people to break into your house. The idea is if you store it electronically, there's more chance of someone coming across it. And there have been cases where if you go into Google Drive and there's people's seed phrase sitting on Google Drive just ready, so your Gmail gets compromised and there goes your entire wallet. Sorry, Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I love that. If you're not expecting someone to break into your house, okay. No,
yeah, well, I mean, it depends on where you live. I don't want to,
Who are you again,
yeah.
Dr. Ryan? No, okay, no, I'm kidding. No, that's great. So this is awesome. So as we go along, guys, let's just take a time for a tip and share that. I think that's wonderful. You also, I want to talk about. Okay, here's a fun one. Both of you have positions. Ryan, you're at Polygon. Josh, you're helping clients protect their assets in a variety of ways. You've probably seen some crazy things without incriminating anyone or naming anything that would be personally identifiable information. Would either of you like to kind of say what's the wildest thing or the craziest thing you've seen in the last few months?
I can. Go ahead, Josh. You have one on top of your head?
I have one on the top of my mind. Now this happened.
Go for it.
This happened about 1.5 years ago, I'd say, and it's public. So I was working with this DAO called Nexus Mutual, which insures smart contracts against hacks. Very interesting DAO there. And the CEO was a target of a very advanced hack. So when you're signing a MetaMask transaction, now that's the wallet used to send Ethereum, all you just see is a bunch of code that isn't human readable. So if you're not paying attention to where you're sending it, it's hard to see where it will be going. And the CEO of this company, Nexus Mutual, was hacked, and he sent millions of dollars worth of NXM, which is their currency, to this hacker, and the hacker got away with the funds. And that wasn't actually covered because he sent it, and it wasn't with the smart contract. His MetaMask got hacked directly. So people could be very tricky, and maybe don't use a hot wallet for a very large transaction like that.
Okay, so a couple of quick things there. You've given another tip there. Don't use a hot wallet. We're going to come back to that, okay? Mm-hmm. But the other was, what fundamental mistake was made here? Is this a social engineering hack? Was it a technology issue? Was it client side? Was it server side? Just to clarify for the audience, what was the fundamental mistake the user made that allowed the hacker to win in this case?
The fundamental mistake is double checking the address to where you're sending the money.
It's a simple thing, isn't it? Right. And these addresses are all unique every single time. And usually if you take a look at, say, the first date and the last date, the odds that those would match across any two addresses are quite low. I mean, checking the entire key can be tedious, but if it's enough money, maybe you should, right? Right. So that's a really interesting one. Ryan, you said you had one, perhaps.
Yeah. So I mean, there's so many. It seems like every day there's more. But you know what? I'd like to talk a little bit about one that is public, and a lot of them are public simply because the nature of the chains. People find out when a company's been hacked. So they come out more often and just disclose it, mostly on Twitter, as soon as it happens, which is
That's
fascinating.
true. Yeah.
But I would like to touch on the Ronin hack, and probably a lot of people have heard about that one. It was very popular, 600 million stolen from the Ronin network. And the reason why I want to touch on that is because one of the mistakes they made is a common mistake with different layer one chains, where they're making compromises on some of the fundamental security aspects of it. So this idea of validators. Now, one of the reasons why you want to have decentralization is so that it's harder for an attacker to compromise too many of those things that are validating a chain. So for example, in a proof of work chain where you have miners, you have many miners who are all mining. And the idea is you have to control very many miners to actually force the blockchain to put a block that was fraudulent onto the chain. And that's kind of a high level example. And what happened in Ronin's case is, I mean, they had, it was $600 million stolen because they had a very small number of validators. Effectively, there was, I think it was 9 validators, if I'm correct. I may be getting the number wrong, but they only needed to compromise 5 of the 9. But then those validators actually turned out to be under the control. 4 of them were actually under control of Axie to begin with. So they weren't even distributed. They weren't decentralized at all, which meant the attacker had a very, they only had to compromise a small amount and then one more, and then they could make whatever transactions they wanted, and they were able to pull out $600 million. I think the most interesting part of this whole situation was it took several days for them to notice that the money it was customers who started complaining that they couldn't take funds out.
Right.
And that's when they realized, oh, look at that. All of our money has been removed from the contract. So I think it's a stunning case because it speaks to one of the principles in blockchains is that it's meant to be decentralized. It's meant to be, validated by several parties, and you have to get 2 of 3 consensus or 2/3 consensus, for example, in some protocols, in order to actually, for a block to be written to the chain.
That's fascinating. The decentralization versus centralization. You're currently working with Polygon, which is an L2 chain to the Ethereum L1. We're in the midst of a move from the original Ethereum, if you will, which was actually several versions, but to ETH 2.0. I'd be really curious to hear your points of view on implications of that. It's a little bit of further afield from cybersecurity, but not exactly, because we're moving from proof of work to proof of stake, which you mentioned. Yes. And the proof of work in its, I'll call it a purist form, like Bitcoin, original Bitcoin, is because there's no pre-mine, because it's distributed over time, there's maybe less tendency towards centralization. I don't want to start a holy war or anything, but this move from proof of work to proof of stake, do you think that has significant cybersecurity or security implications, given the nature of the way those 2 types of consensus mechanisms work? I think it does. I'd be really curious to hear what you guys think.
Yeah. So I think from my perspective, if proof of stake is done properly, I'm less concerned. Where I am concerned, and it's been highlighted by several people in the community these days, recently, when you have these services like Lido. I don't want to pick on Lido. I have nothing against them, but what they're effectively doing is they're pooling together a bunch of validators, which means the validators, if they get enough validators under their umbrella, they can sort of shift away from the decentralization. If they get 51% effectively of all validators, and they have some control over that, then you lose decentralization. There's another one called Rocket Pool, which has a slightly different approach to it, where it's a little more decentralized, but in the same vein, the idea is getting these validators together. And one of the reasons they do that is it takes 32 ETH to become a validator, and there's some technical complexity to becoming a validator as well. So at today's prices, that's about $64,000. I haven't checked the prices today, which is pretty steep. So not anybody can become a validator. So it makes more sense if you want to stake your ETH to join one of these pools where you could stake like 5 or 6 ETH or however many ETH you have and still get some returns on it. But that does to some degree compromise the security of the chain, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Josh, over.
I just checked. 32 ETH today is roughly $57,100. And so there's, as was mentioned earlier, there's an economic thing at play here. It's actually most people can't ever become a validator in that context. I mean, that's just too high a bar. So I think that's super interesting just by itself. Josh, did you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I have a few comments on the layer 2 in cybersecurity surrounding it. So Polygon has multiple approaches to layer 2, and Bitcoin's layer 2 is Lightning Network, and a common approach to layer 2 is that you put money in a wallet and you lock it up for a multi-sig wallet, and you lock it up for a period of time, and then the money that's locked up is now transferred to layer 2, and transactions happen faster and cheaper. That's the general model that's been effective.
Yep.
And so the cybersecurity risks are heightened because you have money that's stagnant in a specific place for a longer period of time. So an attacker has more time to figure out the vulnerabilities of that structure. And if we look at Axie Infinity, you have multi-sig wallets that are together for a purpose, like whether it's a DAO or layer 2, that a hacker had enough time to figure out the vulnerabilities. And to drill down on that specific vulnerability was that the leader or CEO of Axie Infinity had a brief right to access multiple nodes or wallets to distribute money to the community. And then the developers never patched that up, and they never revoked that access. And the attacker found that open and was able to exploit those wallets. So the thing is that you, whenever you're in multi-sig, you want to keep it simple, and you don't want to add any extra rules or complexity to it that opens doors and doors to vulnerability, especially if it's locked up.
That's another tip moment. That's a really good one there. So I'm going to do something real quick. We have had Salim pop into the back end here. So in just a second, Salim Ismail is going to join. Salim Ismail is my co-founder at ExO. I have a whole bunch of things, like a list of things here for Salim. He was the former founder of ExO, which is a company sold to Google in 2010. He's a board member at the X Prize Foundation and co-founding executive director of Singularity University. He's also the founding member and co-founding member and director of the Fast Track Institute, where they're trying to apply technology for humanity. And the thing that led us all together here today, believe it or not, was a little book he wrote back in 2014 called Exponential Organizations that became a number of companies that is now called ExO and the ExO economy. And so here we are. So let's get Salim on. And I also, hey there, Salim, welcome. Glad you can make it.
Hey folks, great to be here.
I say, so we've got Ryan and Josh here, and we've been talking cybersecurity. You've been backstage to listen for a little bit. I'm going to circle back and do a couple
many questions.
Awesome. So I'm going to circle back and do a couple of recaps. We got one question in from the community. I always, as I said, I'll put those first. So if you're out there and you're listening and you hear something, you're like, what the hell did he just say? Or I need more information, or I have a question. Let us know in your whatever channel you're on. We're receiving questions in, it looks like, from YouTube and Facebook at the moment. This question is from Stefano. Hi again, Stefano. Is a multi-signature wallet safer than an individual wallet? I think this is a fascinating question because it's not all about the technology, is it? So Ryan, why don't you take that one first, and then Josh?
Yeah. So I guess it depends on its use. That's where I'm going to go. Like, what do you want to use it for? If you have a group of people who are making decisions and have access to, especially access to other people's funds, then you probably want to lean towards a multi-sig wallet, because then not one person can effectively do like a rug pull, which would be like take all the money out of a project or move all the money without consent. So in those situations, it definitely makes sense to have a multi-sig wallet with a good proportion, right? You want enough people in that multi-sig wallet. So like a 3 of 5 is fairly good. If you're talking like a 5 of 10 or something, like the bigger the numbers, the better. Although the slower it is to react to kind of the wishes of the community to move money. But an individual wallet, personally, I like the idea of having all my funds in an individual wallet and then just protecting my own seed phrase and my own private keys in a very secure way, so that I don't have to trust other people. It then becomes trust, right? Do I trust those other people with the other signatures? Josh, any thoughts?
Yeah, so multi-sig is generally safer when managing funds for a group of people. However, like I said, when dealing with multi-sig, keep the rules as simple as possible, because whenever you make changes or special permissions, even if it's for a short period of time, it is opening doors to vulnerabilities and risk.
There's a funny kind of, I don't know if it's full on meme, but there's a bit of a governance meme around trying to do transactions in multi-signature wallets in DAOs, right? It's really not fun, because you're trying to, you might have 7 people and only 5 need to sign, but trying to get those 7 people in somehow 7 people in 14 time zones to all coordinate and do the thing is actually really hard. So it's safer just because it's so hard to do transactions.
Yes, it's probably not going to move. It's also interesting because it's almost like they're to some, and this is a kind of a tangent, but the idea that not only is the crypto community trying to speedrun finance, they're trying to speedrun governance. So you can see sort of the governance come up and the different sort of forms of governance that are being proposed. And you look back over history and it's like, yeah, a lot of these things have been tried. Go ahead and try them again. I think it's wonderful to see, but there is a lot of kind of discovering maybe representative of government is a better way to go than having everybody have a vote on every proposal. Anyways, I'll leave that there.
No, I love that one. We could do a whole show on DAO governance, right? Where we talk about all the issues that come up around that, and insecurity included. I just want to hit a couple of key things from multiple questions that came in. These are basic things. So let's try to sort of quick hit these and get them out there. But if you wanted to step back, and I'll start with you, Ryan, what is cybersecurity and why do you need it for blockchain?
Okay, let's try and answer that quickly. So cybersecurity is just trying to protect transactions, any interaction you have electronic. That's super broad. Cybersecurity is a very broad term. But effectively, if it happens on the internet and you want to have some security around it, especially with financial, it's cybersecurity. So ensuring that you can safely interact with people, across the world is how I'd summarize. Now,
Josh, you made a lot of a comment about, and a lot of your bio that I received talks about client side. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between client side security and server side security and why that matters?
Yes. So client side security is all about holding your own keys and managing your own keys as an organization, if you're an organization. Now, a lot of the big tech companies, they don't offer client-side encryption so they do offer it, but at a reasonable price. And then also when you're working with multiple cloud providers, it's very difficult to manage different sets of keys with a multi-cloud application or multiple applications across the cloud, and you really need it because it reflects the ethos of crypto. You need it because let's say that Google is hosting its own blockchain. Well, then you're subject to the political bias of Google, and if you look behind the Snowden leaks of 2016, a lot of the big tech companies have a backdoor to the the government or governing bodies, and do you want to be building very large financial markets upon those foundations?
So big thing comes down to who controls your keys, long story short, right? So I think that's right, and so you need to decide how much you're willing to delegate as a user, don't you? How safe do you feel with your service providers and things like that? The difference between running your own Bitcoin wallet or using Coinbase, right? You know,
I have a metaphysical question, quick one.
go for it.
You know, one of the commentaries I've heard repeatedly about blockchain is that you end up with a trustless system that you, because of the multi-party management and stakeholder and balancing, etc., you actually don't need to trust the counterparty, and you don't have counterparty risk. However, as we move forward, like you end up either having to trust Axie Infinity has enough validators or not. What do you guys feel about that? Is it a holy grail, or does blockchain and proof of stake, proof of work get us closer than most other systems, but it's this asymptotic issue? Where do you guys sit philosophically on that?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. I think it provides a mechanism where you could potentially have a trustless system insofar as every block written to the blockchain has been validated in a decentralized fashion. If you have enough validators, if you're following kind of these laws, but what you build on top of that still requires trusted parties, no doubt. Like when you're talking about multi-sig wallets, when you're talking about DAOs, I think we're recognizing it's while the base layer is trustless, everything built on top, just like everything else we do, requires trust between people to interact. Go ahead, Josh. Thoughts?
Yes. So in a really extreme example, on one end of the spectrum, you have Bitcoin, and that's pretty costly to run. It's a slow system, and the economic incentives are really strong, which makes it very resilient. It has not been hacked all these years, and it has proven to be this digital gold. And then, so a lot of Bitcoin maximalists said, hey, it's only Bitcoin, everything else, will fall through. Ethereum has really come over the years to prove itself, to show that, some basic applications could be built and be protected on the system when we're working properly. And so Polygon now is exploring faster transactions and a lower level security that could still be trusted with the economic incentives. And so I strongly believe that we're building towards a future where you don't have to trust an individual, and these decentralized networks are actually more reliable. One thing to note, to be very careful about, is that when you do have a DAO, not only are there security vulnerabilities, but very recently the trending topic is bribing DAOs. So what if those validators are bribed by a larger DAO or a larger economic entity to vote for a certain thing to influence where the funds are going? So you want to be very, very careful working with smaller DAOs, because this bribing model can really undermine the values of a small DAO.
That's really interesting. Salim, I'm going to flip one back to you. So exponential organizations, these are organizations that presumably will harness exponential technologies and techniques to grow 10 times faster than their peers in the same segment. What do you think these types of companies must do when it comes to things like blockchains, cryptocurrency, DAOs, in order to be exponential organizations?
I think there's a graph in my head on, and I'm sure somebody's drawn it somewhere, on trust.
You think? I don't know.
Trust and scale, right? And if you want to scale, then trust goes down. And is there a holy grail where you can have high trust and high scalability in the model? Like, for example, we've been trying to write our second edition of the book, bringing a large group of community members together, and everybody can contribute, and it's this wonderful hive mind thing in theory. But some contributors late, somebody's overwritten their piece, and it's a shit show of messiness, and you kind of lose the gold in the chaos of that multi stakeholder environment. And so whereas if we had a small curated group, they might do really well for a bit, but then it doesn't really scale, right? And so I think if you apply this writ large, the big question is how do you scale trust is the fundamental question here. The programmability of, say, NFTs or crypto and so on make it more powerful to scale trust than anything we've ever seen before. But I think it's like it's more fragile. Like it's great until it breaks, and then it really breaks. Right? And then and then you can't put it back together again. It's like spinning glass. It's really beautiful for a while, and then one little ting, and the whole thing shatters. And that's kind of like some of the metaphors that are appearing to me.
So, Lee, are you talking about this kind of a 2x2 where you'd have high trust at one end and low trust at the other, low scale at one end and high scale at the other?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we just made up a 2x2 for the consulting world out there.
Well,
so so what's it mean?
There's a holy grail of high trust and high scale, right?
Yeah.
And if there's lots of places where you have high trust and low scale, that's easy. I think most people are in that can go there.
So lots of places.
To the top right is very hard.
Give me an example. What would be down here on the bottom left?
High scale, low trust.
This would be low scale, low trust.
Oh, low scale, low trust. Oh, God.
That could be fun. Yeah.
Tribal wars.
Okay. Tribal wars.
My mother was a diplomat. I'm from India originally. My mother was a diplomat in the Middle East, and she said there's one statement that summarizes it all. So it's me against my brother, the two of us against our cousin, the three of us against the world. And that explains everything in the Middle East. And there you have low scale and low trust.
Okay.
Right.
What about a high trust, high scale example?
High trust, high scale example. I mean, Bitcoin is maybe the first. There's high trust, and there's the scale is questionable as it gets bigger. So that's the challenge, right? The proof of work paradigm. Maybe proof of stake solves that. I'd like your guys, Ryan and Josh, on your opinion on that. Do you get high trust in a proof of stake system?
I could comment on it first. So proof of stake can be high trust, high scale, but as we were discussing earlier, it costs 32 Ethereum to run a node, and then on top of that, you need the computational resources and the memory to store all that information in each node. And so yeah, you can have high trust and high scale, and on a fundamental level, if you look at what the the barrier is, this was surrounding the big block debate in Bitcoin a while ago, is that it's just how can I participate in the network with my laptop that I'm using right now to record this, for example, or will the requirements go lower, where computational requirements go lower, where everyone could participate, or will the innovation of personal computing go to where supercomputers are today? That's the question.
Yeah, and I think right now the computational barrier isn't as high as the ETH barrier. So if you can afford 32 ETH, you can afford hopefully the $2,000 or probably much less now to buy a computer for proof of stake. Proof of stake is meant to be computationally inexpensive. Like storage is relatively cheap. You can get 2 terabyte, 4 terabyte hard drive at Walmart for almost nothing. I didn't mean to use a brand name there at all. But the idea being that
Ryan says shop at Walmart.
But yes, the 32 ETH is definitely a barrier. And I think when it was originally proposed, it wasn't. I think people didn't necessarily imagine how much ETH would be worth. But that's the big barrier, because you want anybody to be able to be a validator. And as mentioned before, because of that economic barrier, you end up having these pooling systems, which can then move things slightly away from decentralization. And you're really betting on, can enough people collude together? And I think we underestimate to some degree just how many people you could get to collude together to do something and to kind of together decide to move things slightly towards decentralization. Anyways, that's my thoughts on it.
Do you mean slightly towards centralization with collusion?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Oh, well,
yeah,
either direction, right? Yeah, they could push things in either direction depending on how. You're sort of assuming that people are going to play fair, which no one's going to play fair, but hopefully enough people play fair that you can keep it decentralized.
Got it.
So
Quick,
I think one of the, oh, sorry, go ahead. I don't want to.
No, sorry. It's just a show hosting thing. Just a quick shout out to the community. If you have a question for Ryan or Josh or Salim or me, you've got to put it in the chat wherever you are, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and let us know. We're very happy. We'll prioritize any questions that come in from the audience. I just want to remind everybody of that. It's a live show, so we have to do that sometimes.
So there's I just want to add, if we go back to that 2x2, essentially scale, if you're willing to pay, then you can get trust at scale. But it's high cost. So the scale has a cost component built into it, I think. Okay.
Yeah, and what's super strange about that is, like, as Ryan mentioned, in Ethereum, the price of Ethereum has changed that cost dramatically over time. That is, whereas I might have been able, for example, if I wanted to do this for Ethereum, I might have been able to do this in the past. I can't perhaps today. So, and that's really interesting. Like, why is that? Because if it all scales relatively, but it's not. So does this mean that, well, what it does is it pushes out the people in the middle and at the bottom, being able to participate in the validation or the consensus mechanisms of certain protocols.
Yeah, and there's a certain advantage, as with a lot of things in cryptocurrencies right now, it's the early adopter advantage. So if you're an early adopter to Ethereum, you probably have a lot of Ethereum sitting around. You are kind of rewarded for your, being a fan of Ethereum so long. You have a better chance of being a validator. So I think you'll see a lot of the validators and existing people have been around for a while in the community. That also might speak to sort of their motivations, right? Because they've probably been in the community a while. They might have some idea of what Ethereum is and how it works and what the ethos is. Whereas if just anybody could spin up a node, although that would be ideal that anybody could spin up a node, you may to some degree, like, you would get a lot of people who maybe don't understand what it's about. Also, there's a technical limitation of understanding how to run a node, making sure it runs, and the slashing mechanism. Like, there's a lot of ways that you could stake your ETH, and then not a lot of ways, but there's that risk that staking your ETH, and you do it wrong, your validator doesn't have enough uptime, and you find that you're, potentially not getting the rewards you would normally get if you could keep it.
Your blocks will be rejected if you don't meet the bar, right?
Exactly.
So that goes. There's this interesting point that you made about collusion, Josh. I think you made that point, or bribes. Which one of you said bribes? Was that you, Josh?
Bribe.
Yeah. So that's fascinating. I want to return to that briefly. So we've got corruption. I mean, I think there's no shortage of corruption in the world, and there's this concept of things like being trustless. Trustless does not necessarily mean not corrupt. So when we're talking about this from a security perspective, from a keep your crypto safe perspective, this is not a technology problem, right? This is a human problem. Do you have any thoughts that both of you or any of you would like to share about that?
So many. Josh, do you want to go first? I have lots of thoughts on this topic.
Yeah, I'll just share a small thought because I want to hear others' opinion on it. But I think that if you look at, the largest DAOs, those could really work because it is building on a new system, and maybe an external bribe wouldn't work as well. And so I'd be willing to bet on, very large DAOs, whether that's MakerDAO or something around an exchange, like Convex or Curve. It's pretty interesting. They're not the biggest, but maybe Uniswap, Aave, just these very interesting emerging platforms. And I think those will end up absorbing other DAOs and growing through kind of like an acquisition potentially. We'll see how it evolves.
Right.
Yeah, so I spend a lot of my time looking at how people use technology in cybersecurity. So how can someone take advantage of this technology to, move funds or make money? And that's what we see in Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, you always hear the claim it's never been hacked, it's a secure protocol, but how much money laundering happens on Bitcoin? Now, it's a small percentage in the grand scheme of how much money moves, but it has been used for malicious purposes quite a lot, and as has Ethereum, as have cryptocurrencies in general.
And,
So
and,
you have
and,
to
doll-
kind of,
and dollars and euros
and dollars and all of it. Yes,
Yeah.
it's all.
Yeah.
So what I think all about is how people use the technology and how they can, again, like how they conclude to get things done that they want, that they're motivated to do. So a simple example, and I don't want to throw anybody on the bus, but SBF, the founder of FTX, is talking about his political donations that he wants to make. I think at one point he just flippantly said, I could spend, I want to say it was $1 billion. I'm probably getting the number wrong, but he said some outrageous number. I could spend this on candidates for the next election. So that is like that's not a technology thing. That's somebody who rose using technology who can now use that money to influence politics, right? Mm-hmm. So not that I'm saying it's malicious or anything. I'm just saying that I think about what people are going to do with the technology and the gains in the technology. So what are the DAOs? What's their motivations? Are they, what do they want to do at the end? Especially when you start seeing centralization and DAOs merging together, what's their purpose? What's their end game? Is the kind of things that I think about.
Salim, you had a story, and I was just trying to remember. You had a story you told me about airport corruption. Do you remember this one where they had come up with a method to deter corruption in the building of an airport?
There was a big Canadian company that built an airport in a Latin American company. I'll keep the name off just for security reasons. But the first thing that happens when you build an infrastructure project in a third world country is the mayor's brother comes and says, hey, my construction firm is really the firm you want to use, et cetera, et cetera. And the CEO of the construction firm is going nuts, going, I can't, I got my shirt, lost my shirt on those 3 projects in other countries. I cannot have this happen here. So what do you do? So he did something amazing. He called the Prime Minister's office in Canada and said, look, I want you to say that you're overseeing this project. You don't have to do anything, but I need you to provide oversight. And did the same with the head of state for that country. And so when somebody came asking, he basically said, go get approval from those 2 offices. And if you get approval to be a vendor by those 2 offices, I'm good to go. And it completely stifled it. But essentially there you're putting trust in a third party and making it harder, right?
And if that third party is a blockchain or a smart contract or a multi-signature wallet, don't you get the same thing?
Yeah, it could well be you're just increasing the friction level there to try and get the bar gets higher, which is essentially most of cybersecurity is just making the bar higher, right? And making it a smaller attack surface or a more expensive attack surface or whatever.
Any comments, Ryan, Josh?
Yeah, I always say that we're making the attacks more expensive, and instead of making a system unhackable, you're making it the least profitable system to hack.
I love that. That theme has come up a lot. In fact, that's how Bitcoin works. It's too expensive to reorg the chain, right? So nobody's going to reorg the chain. It literally makes no sense. You would destroy yourself in the effort.
And I don't want to comment quickly on that. Is the profitability of some of the same hacks that we've seen for ages. So the same phishing attacks that we've probably seen for the last 10 years. The profitability when it comes to cryptocurrency is through the roof. It's in like a simple Discord hack now. So for example, what we saw with the Bored Apes, and we see this often in the crypto space, is someone will hack the Discord. They look like one of the trusted people, and then they'll put out, we're minting this brand new NFT, get it now, this is your only chance. And people will just mint that as fast as they can because they're hoping to get a massive return. So I've seen a case where one was up for less than an hour. Like literally the mods had it taken down, the moderators of the Discord had it taken down within an hour, and it had already made well over $100,000 in stolen funds because of just the speed at which people want to mint this NFT because of that fear of missing out. So again, it's this taking advantage of the people, not the tech. Well, there's a bit of taking advantage of technology, but even then, it's a social engineering attack that led them to hack the Discord. Again, taking advantage of the people.
There's a famous real-world example of the social engineering risk. Which was they dropped a USB stick outside an office building, and 40% of people would plug it in. But if you printed the name of the company logo on the USB stick, 95% would plug it in. And so right there, you're just done.
Wait,
Like,
what do you
so-
do? You just, if you're in cybersecurity, Ryan, Josh, you're like,
yeah.
I can only do so much, right? It's like- so I want to make sure we hit one more. This is an interesting question from Angelo. Angelo says to us that on June 4th, Michael Saylor said, proof of work is money and proof of stake is credit. What are your thoughts about this? Give it a shot. We got to be quick and punchy on this one. I'm sorry, because we'll have to start to wrap, but I didn't want to miss the question.
Mm-hmm. I just disagree. It's more nuanced than that, because they're both validating a ledger. Let's just say it as it is, and they're both going after the same goal. That, hey, if you try and alter this ledger, you'd lose more money than you could profit off of. And I think that it's just creating this like false dichotomy on a different topic than what it really is. That's the best way I could explain.
Thanks for your comment there, Mark. I popped it up there just for a second. Ryan, you want to weigh in on that one?
Actually, unfortunately, I want to think about that for a while.
I know.
I love those. I love those punchy, like those little, like, you look at it and think, I have to reflect on that.
Michael is famous for that. I'll throw it this way. I'll paraphrase it to say Bitcoin is gold and proof of stake is money. That's how I would paraphrase it. But it's roughly saying the same thing. You can't imagine Michael saying anything else. Kind of thing. So
there's a whole conversation about the power of money and people that I think we could do a whole other hour on, because it's just such an incredible topic about how ingrained and how basic money is to humans, and how it tickles the amygdala when you grab somebody's wallet, and that elicits incredibly strong responses. I want to remind that we did throw out a few tips earlier. Nikki, maybe we can try to grab these tips out of this and put together an article over for ExO Insight or something like that later. I think that'd be really good. And perhaps we launch Salim's newest 2x2 out into the world somehow and crowdsource what should go into those quadrants from the community. That would be really fun. I feel, gentlemen, I feel like we barely scratched the surface today. I am really grateful for all your attention and tips and taking the time to be here with us and share with our Open ExO community. Before I take off, Ryan, is there anything you want to tell the Open ExO community, share with the community, and same to you, Josh? So just kind of a last word to you on anything you'd like to say. There are about 17,300 people in our community. Thousands are trained in the ExO model. Most of them are working one way or another to transform the world for a better future and build exponential organizations in their own ways. Any tips or tricks? Last call. Words of wisdom.
Yeah, so I have one. If you want to get involved in cryptocurrencies, one of the things I recommend to everybody is to start with a very small amount of money on a centralized exchange. Just buy a few cryptocurrencies, read about it. Because once you own it, once you even have $100 worth of Ether, now you're going to start wanting to learn more about it. And that's probably the safest way to start. Self-custody is great, but start with a centralized exchange and then move your way into more complicated things.
Very good one. Josh?
Yep. So I'd say, piggybacking on what Ryan said, is just hold a little bit of cryptocurrency and experiment with whatever these technologies are and interact with it. And then once you interact with it, try and start, thinking of ideas of how you build upon it and potentially leverage your skills to build upon the community. You don't have to be a developer. You could help out in any way.
Very good tips. Salim, you want to throw anything out there for the EXOs of the world? Or
put a big chunk into Luna just before it crashes and then try and figure out how to recover it.
I detect a bit of self-deprecation there. Okay. All right. Well, that's what we've got. I've got to hand it back to Nikki because they're throwing stuff at me because I'm going too long. This was wonderful. It was such a pleasure to meet you guys. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Good to see you guys.
Thank you very much.
Nikki, back to you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Josh, Ryan, Salim, Kent, you were all wonderful. Another great episode. You can find the replay button in the chat here. And I just wanted to thank the team behind us. We've got Jill in the background running the show here. Kevin is a backup. He's saved us many times. Thank you, Kevin. And our ExO Angels, we just came off of a 30 doubling challenge. So we've got a lot of winners. We've got 38 winners that won over 10,000 tokens just by playing a game. So help us out. We're going to turn that into experience points challenges, and we're going to keep going with the team-based model, building out the community to do exactly what we talked about today. So all the good parts of what we talked about today. So be safe, be good, and be exponential. Ciao.